I call Chris Ockenvold.
Mr. Speaker, the previous speaker is normally really interesting to listen to and covers a fair range of topics, but the conclusion of that one, of that speech, was a disappointment to hear from the Honourable Marion Street, she can do so much better than that, than throwing that little bit of rhetoric around. But, Mr. Speaker, in the Prime Minister's State of the Nation statement, he states that the government will remain focused on the opportunities to use New Zealand's natural resources productively while maintaining environmental standards that preserve and enhance the quality of our environment. And, Mr. Speaker, I would like to concentrate on that topic and the opposition's attitude towards the use of natural resources, or the perceived attitude that can be damaging to the future of New Zealand's economy. The oil, the coal and the gas and water are mentioned. We need, Mr. Speaker, to earn the money that we require to progress as a nation. Mrs. Thatcher once said, and it's been repeated more than once in this party, the problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money.
That's right.
And that is so true. But interestingly, in this country, we have one party, and I'm sure they won't mind me mentioning it. Indeed, they'll probably be pleased. But they have a solution for that. The Green Party has a solution for that. The Green Party, as I say, made up of nice individual MPs, but often associated in public perception with recreational, illegal and currently unregulated drugs, would take a leaf from the fairy tale character that spun gold out of straw. Spun gold out of straw because what they intend to do would simply be to print more money.
What's that?
Well, they want to print more money, but there's an irony attached to that. An irony, because this is a $20 note, a New Zealand $20 note. You cannot tear it in half. You can't tear a bit off it. Why is that? It's because it's made of polymer. And if they print more money and at the same time restrict the use of oil and things that are used to manufacture the plastic polymers, they won't have the notes to print because of the lack of support for their mining industry in New Zealand. So one does have to wonder about the raison d'etre of a party which is happy to share the association with other natural sources in New Zealand, basically marijuana, an underground economy which is riddled with criminality, exploitation of the vulnerable and the young, glamorisation of guns, drugs and dreadlocks, and the unfettered continuity of an untaxable parasitic industry destroying the livelihood and lives of many in New Zealand neighbourhoods and community. And, Mr. Speaker, if that sounds a little rugged or tough, I make no apology for it. I make no apology for it, because the Greens have claimed that if marijuana was legalised, the industry would become viable and taxable. And I've had enough exposure to some of the things that Mike Sabin has experienced in his career and his constant fight against drug use that convinces me the chances of that happening are pretty low to try and organise it on a legal basis. But the ongoing work of creating New Zealand's narrative, National seeks to work with resources already available, like water, minerals, oil, gas and precious metals. Of course, like all things precious and unique, these resources are often well hidden, they're in fragile environments and have been this way for a number of centuries. In an effort to release the wealth locked up in the natural currency, we must seize and use the strengths of other valuable natural resources available to us, which is ourselves. Ourselves. Because New Zealand has a tremendous capacity and an international reputation. New Zealanders have an international reputation for being problem solvers. It's almost a mythical quality that they are, or a mythical level that they are credited with having in terms of solving problems. And I guess it's a consequence of moving on from the tough and ready pioneering outlook which carried this nation so far, making the most of what was readily available, light to carry, choosing the bravest to carry out the job with whatever protection was available. Our legislation reflects a growing maturity as we warm to a position as a first world country in a world desperately looking for responsible, enlightened leadership and well-considered sustainable industry, and that's what this government, particularly under the leadership of this Prime Minister, is providing. Anyone visiting the West Coast, something of a favourite area of mine, Mr Speaker, cannot miss the Brunner Mine Memorial, where on Thursday, 26 March in 1896, an explosion killed all 65 miners below the ground. To deepen the tragedy, the widows received no compensation and mostly had to leave town, while the men were buried in a mass grave at Stillwater. I pass that on most days when I'm at home. The days of old, well, the 70s were a time when songs like Pete Seeger's God's Counting on Me, God's Counting on You, using the famous lines, drill baby drill turns to spill baby spill, were written to shine a critical light on sloppy and dangerous mining practices. And the people in the mining industry also listened. Pike River, Mr Speaker, where an explosion occurred Friday 19th November 2010, where 29 men died, is still in very, very recent memory. There are many commemorative sites in Greymouth, as well as continuing work assisting the families. The New Zealand mining industry, Mr Speaker, has learned from this, as has the New Zealand legislature. Millions of dollars, a lot of expert opinion, as well as research and experience from overseas, have created an industry that is self-aware, self-motivated, well-regulated and ready to earn for New Zealand. It's an industry, Mr Speaker, that we can be well proud of. 1.1 billion of mineral exports, the government's Petroleum Minerals Sector Report 2013. 8,000 direct and indirect jobs in the mineral industry, as quoted in the NZIER 2011 and Burl 2011 reports. The minerals industry believes that properly encouraged and managed, growth in New Zealand minerals sector could treble in on-the-ground investment and output over time. The average wage for a miner is $105,000, around double the national average wage. Also, from the sector report, mining is therefore a good job to have. All the figures have come from the appropriate bodies that have these figures available. And mining supports regions. For example, mining on the West Coast earns around one-third of the region's household income of a footprint of, wait for it, 14 square kilometres. 14, compared to the total area of the region of 23,000 square kilometres. Therefore, mining earns a very high wealth of a very small footprint. No other land use in New Zealand earns anywhere near that amount. None. Oceana Gold has calculated it would take 700 years of farming at Macraes to earn the same wealth as that expected during the life of the East Otago gold mine. And the profits, Mr Speaker, do not just go offshore. Up to 86% of mining output stays in New Zealand as salaries, taxes, rates, other charges and payments to suppliers and contractors. That figure comes from Newmont Waihi Gold. The fact is that mining today is a high-tech industry employing skilled people, producing essential materials for New Zealand and overseas markets safely and responsibly. But, Mr Speaker, let's examine the possibility of what might happen if we were to get a Greens Labor government. I can't see how Labor can say that it wouldn't change things. I think it would, because they'd have to incorporate the Greens into their mix, and good Labor thinkers, people who've been associated with the party for a long time, I can look across the House and see some of the prominent people. Would they be included? Would they be bypassed? Would they be bypassed? Would the Greens, GD, what would the Greens do? Would they be like an overcautious curator at an art gallery or museum exhibit where they shout, "Don't touch, don't change anything, leave things for the children"? Well, to put it into musical context, as Matt Bird, the underestimated musical genius and ex-Green smoker, mentioned in one of his poem rhymes, "We are the children. We are the children." It's up to us to decide the future of our parents and grandparents that they bequeath to us. Mr Speaker, to conclude, the thing is, the national government has plans. We are prepared to back them with well-considered fiscal strategy, not just to spend money, not just to make money, not just to try to turn everything back to a pre-currency economy. National has plans which includes us, the residents of these beautiful islands, these jewels of the South Pacific. A government that's in touch with communications.
Order. The member's time has expired.
Thank you.
I call Scott Simpson.